getting used to the sort of set. So I was like, no, it's a square, but tilted. And they were like, no, explain it to me again. And I was like, and it was just me drawing on the floor. And everyone was like, oh, it's a square. And I was like, yes.
Oh, a square. Why didn't you say that?
Why didn't you just say it was a square on a tilt?
I was busy thinking about boys, boys, boys. I was busy dreaming about boys.
So let's get started. In terms of, so for Picnic, could you give a brief synopsis of the play?
Yes. So Picnic is a story that was written in the 1950s, and it's the story of a very small town in Kansas. It takes place over 24 hours, and it is the day of the Labor Day picnic. So it's like a bank holiday, American bank holiday. And we follow a family of two sisters and a single mum as they get ready for this picnic. And an out-of-towner arrives, and it's his sort of effect on the very female-led community of that town. That's it.
Love it when a handsome out-of-towner always just comes in to disrupt my
It's great. It happens so often, and it changes us all up.
Why did you choose to direct Picnic?
I really like American playwrights, so I've always wanted to do one of those. Any show I do, I'm interested in having a good amount of good roles for women. I think it's 7 women to 3 men. So that's quite rare in anything that's pre sort of 1980s maybe. And I read it and I loved it, and I read all of William Inge's plays and I loved them all. And he writes in a very realistic, very honest way about the human condition, and that was something that really appealed to me. Once I'd read it, I was like, oh, breaks my little heart. And it does. Every time I think about Picnic, I'm like, One of the main and constant inspirations for Picnic was the fact that I had seen and continued to watch almost incessantly Call Me By Your Name. So I watched it, then I read the book, then I watched the film again, then I read the book, and I was like, and that was so integral to that show for me. I was like, that's it. It's that show. It's Call Me By Your Name. Before Call Me By Your Name was written, was Picnic. So much so that the cast, when the show was over, got me various Call Me By Your Name themed presents, because I was so in every rehearsal like, it's like that bit in Call Me By Your Name.
It's like, how do I phrase this? How do I picture it? Picture Timothy Chalamet and Armie Hammer, but that's not who you are. But imagine if you were them, but that's not who you are. But also imagine on a bike.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, imagine you're Armie Hammer.
Yeah.
Go, roll with it.
What kind of prep did you do before you started kind of rehearsals?
Most of my shows, I do a lot of reading. That's my main prep that I do as a director. It's also quite visual, so both me and my design team, who I always work with, which is Kate, who's our set designer, and Edith, who's our costume designer. A visual thing that was really good for us was Edward Hopper paintings. Just like lots of reference photos of the time, of the 50s, and it's sort of acknowledging how a lot of 50s photos could look like they were taken today.
It's a story that is relevant today, but the very 50s thing for all is there is a smaller sub-story of a queer love. Possibly as queer characters, and the idea obviously in the 50s what that would be, and actually how you can't be explicit with your affections.
Yeah, I think it's really important. I mean, I think that came from, there's nothing fundamentally in the text that says like this person is queer, I think. But Inge himself was gay and it wasn't a time when he could come out. And I think a lot of his plays have a subtext of someone who is struggling with that, having to keep that secret. And I think we found that there were 2 good places to represent that side of the playwright and that side of society were in the roles of Alan mainly, but also a little bit in the role of Hal, because we were saying Hal is that sort of character who, as long as they are attractive to somebody or sort of charming someone, it doesn't matter who that person is. It doesn't matter what gender they are, it doesn't matter what they look like, it doesn't matter what age they are. He just has to be romantically and physically attractive to someone. That is the type of person he is. Alan, I think, was a bit more of a William Inge type situation, and I think that's definitely the character that is the most the playwright is the most present there. Everything is going right for them, they're going to get the right job, all that sort of stuff, and then they feel so stifled by their inability to just be open and honest and be like, yes, I'm all those things, I also happen to be gay. Like, and the fact that in the 50s that wasn't something you could just do is so heartbreaking and rubbish. And then we also, there's two school teachers in the play who are smaller roles, but just come and you get a bit more of a sense of the community from them. And it just felt so strange to have all these characters have this hidden desire and this longing about someone in the play, and then these two women to come and not have that we thought, well, perfect, they can have that about each other.
I want to talk about your staging, because if I'm right, the play says it's set in the backyard of like these free American houses. As a community theatre, obviously, it's not as easy for a week-long show anyway, or affordable to create free massive American houses and a yard. So talk about your staging choice and your set building.
Yeah, so I mean, the benefit of the play is that it's all set in one place, which is really good for any sort of set of a community theatre, because it means you don't have to do... I don't particularly like set changes either. I find them quite clunky. Kate, like I said, our set designer, and myself, we talked through our ideas of what sort of we wanted to create. And I very much like seeing the cast a lot. So sort of in that Brechtian way, sort of always on stage, being aware of the theatricality of it as well. And we talked about how important that sort of space was as a acting space. So creating that thing where sometimes you're observed and sometimes you're private. Because the idea that the play creates is this shared garden of these houses is somewhere where you're always sort of being watched. So we definitely don't want to lose that. And what Kate came up with was a little bit like a boxing ring. So we have the American porch style woodwork, and our floor was this green tiling, which was very 50s as well, this sort of lino kind of thing. And it was just a standalone porch. And so literally any acting was done in that space, and then any observing was done outside of that structure. Putney Arts Theatre has quite a big stage. It's great because you have so much space, but it's also, if you're doing something that's a very intimate play, it can be hard to get that sort of closeness. It really mirrored that idea of the town, was that it's this very hot, very claustrophobic kind of environment that these young people are really struggling against, and they don't really have anything to go to do. It's not like they're like, I'm going to go and make my fortune doing this. They don't have that. They're just ordinary people, but they know that they want more than just replicating what your parents have done.
So another thing that's quite, I guess, unique to this show is that you had live music being played and sung.
I'd worked with Dom, who was he arranged the music and was also the music director. All my previous shows, I'd used music in the same way, but it was pre-recorded. And it just sort of felt, because the plot was this picnic day where they talk about a band and they talk about music, it sort of felt like it would work quite well without being too jarring, going, why is there a band there in the middle of their house?
Take care of your mother, watch out for your sister.
We decided to do was use all modern day or modern songs that weren't written in the 50s, and Dom arranged them so they all had this sort of 50s style. We used all sorts of stuff. We used a Kate Bush song, we used a Beyoncé song, we used a DJ Khaled song. That was my personal favourite, I think, the DJ Khaled one. There's three single women over the age of 35. I think their love and their longing and their desire, I think, is something that Inge really captures really well. And I wanted that to be quite central to the show. So we did a physical sequence just for those three women for that, and how women protect each other and help each other when they're in those sort of situations, I think was really important as well. The song was Kate Bush's A Woman's Worth. So I think I just wanted a tiny little breather of a moment where you could see their kind of, their longing. And that's a really important factor of the play, I think, is this desire that people have and people sit on and don't reveal and don't share and don't talk about, and how much that can affect you, even if it's nothing, even if it comes from literally just somebody saying hi to you in the street and then you're like, that's the person, I love them. It can really do something to you, and I think Inge really captures that in a way that I don't think you read very often. Just this desire and this hurt that can come with positive things like passion and love, and how it sort of follows you through your journey. And that's the nice thing about the play, is you see different ages of women and how it sticks with you no matter how old you get.
What were the challenges that you faced whilst putting the show together?
Yeah, it seems like a while ago now, so I want to be like, no, there were no challenges. It was a joyous time where everything was peachy. Getting used to the sort of set. In community theatre, obviously we don't rehearse with the set for very long. We have maybe a week or a bit more than that to rehearse. Our set was on an angle, so it was a square, but it was slightly on a tilt, so it was like a diamond shape. And getting that across to people was far harder than I ever thought would be possible. I was like, no, it's a square, but tilted. And they were like, no, explain it to me again. And I was like, and it was just me drawing on the floor and setting it out in tape. And everyone was like, oh, it's a square. And I was like, yes.
Oh, a square. Why didn't you say that?
Why didn't you just say it was a square on a tilt?
Happiness hit her like a train on a track.
I looked at the photos before we were chatting, and I was very pleased that we were bringing this script to people, because it was a show that not a lot of people knew. A lot of people didn't even know the writer. And I think I was just very proud that I felt like we were doing it justice. He's such an understated writer. He's such a good writer. I guess I felt if he saw it, he might not hate it, which I think it's all you want. The cast was really perfect, I think. We actually had some problems with casting early on. We had quite a few people drop out. I struggle to even remember that because the end cast that we had was so on point. I really loved it. Thank you. And I didn't swear.
Well done.
When you said that rule, I was like, ooh, get your editing pen out. I definitely wouldn't change anything about the look of it or the cast, because I think they just nailed it for me. Yeah, so I changed the bits I had stuff to do with, and everybody else, they did well first time. Damn it.
There's always one.
There's always one letting the team down.